Good evening and welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm typically the co-host, but Josh is again on a mission that he won't tell me about. So I'm going to be the host today as well. And you can already see that with me, I have a very good friend, Representative Lisa Freeman. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
And we did, as you know, we took a poll. Whether it's, I put it on Facebook and on the Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades page, and it's sauce or gravy on your pasta. And we didn't particularly like the way the poll came out, so we're going to have a do-over, I think.
Yeah, we're going to have a do-over.
Yeah, because I don't think there's enough real Italians that live in New Hampshire. I mean, if we went to East Boston or we went to even Hartford, Connecticut, Rhode Island, whatever, we would kill this poll. So we'll do a do-over, and so you can vote again. Please only vote once unless you say it's gravy. Then you can vote as many times as you want.
Right, this isn't a presidential election, so please only vote once.
Yeah, exactly.
Please only vote once.
And we'll probably have people there to make sure we count right. Don't you think?
Well, yeah,
you'll look at mine, I'll look at yours.
Right. We'll have quality control in place in order to make sure the results come out the results, and no absentee ballots.
Exactly.
No absentee ballots. Sorry.
And this will be fun.
Yeah.
So,
but we should explain. We should explain that there is a distinct difference between gravy and sauce.
Correct.
So, you explain it, JP, because I've explained it enough times.
Go ahead.
So the difference between gravy and sauce, no matter how trivial people may think this is gravy usually has meat in it. It has sausages, pork chops, chicken, meatballs.
Right.
Hence gravy, because the meat drippings go into the tomato sauce.
Exactly.
And makes it a gravy. Now, a sauce is technically a marinara sauce, which is just tomatoes, olive oil, salt, pepper, basil, whatever you put in it. So that's the distinction.
Yeah, and I actually had a chef of 29 years tell me this the other day at the golf tournament we had.
Oh.
She said the exact same thing that you just did.
Thank you.
So it's true. So let's get into a couple of things. I wore this shirt tonight to it had to do with the legislature's golf tournament that we had Monday.
It was Monday, yep.
Yeah, the heat's gotten to me, folks. But anyway, we had a great turnout. I think there were like 28 foursomes, I believe.
28 foursomes,
and we had a nice mixture of both sides. It really was bipartisan, no question about it. I mean, I had a fun foursome. I was on a foursome. It was called the SOS foursome, and it didn't mean health. It meant Secretary of State. Scanlon's foursome.
I was going to ask you. I had some other ideas of what it might.
I'm sure you did.
I did.
So this is a family show tonight.
I know, which is why I didn't just blurt it out.
Okay, good. So anyway, I was on that foursome with obviously David Scanlon, Joe Kenny, Executive Counselor Joe Kenny, and Will Infantine. And I really had fun. I had to quit after 11 holes. The heat really got to me.
It was really bad.
I got into the clubhouse, and Heather Pearl, being a nurse, took care of me. She made sure I had a bunch of electrolytes in me, and I also had something to eat. So thank you. A shout out to Heather Pearl and everyone that came to the golf tournament. Governor Ayotte showed up. She spoke for a few minutes.
She did. The Speaker of the House was there.
Yep, Speaker of the House was there. And Kelly, before she finished talking, said she was also donating $1,000 to Liberty House through our organization. So all of you who played and donated money, I greatly appreciate it. Speaking of that, we're sponsored by a gun club.
Yes.
Wilson Hill.
That's right.
Gun Club, and they do help make sure that we can get on the air, so I want to thank them. Again, Josh has snuck away again on me. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to get somebody to follow him. Maybe my Uncle Nunzio could take care of this for me. But what I'd like to talk about today is the positive things that have happened at the State House this year, because there are some issues that still need to be resolved. but at least they're being heard out. Nobody is, not stopping people from talking, at least not to my knowledge.
No?
But I'd like to, I'll give it to you. It's your show from here on, so.
Oh, no, you should never do that, JP.
No, go ahead.
There are two things that really stick out in my mind that the governor just signed a week and a half ago. And one of them was universal education freedom accounts. Now
right.
there will be no income limits on who can qualify for an
great.
EFA, which is going to be a huge help to families as far as them plotting out what works best for their own children and their own family. And as of, I believe it was last Friday, over 2,000 families in New Hampshire had already applied for it.
That's great.
So I think that's huge. I mean, Victoria Sullivan and I and Kate Demers and there's just so many people who've been involved in the school choice movement over the past several years to
Cordelli.
watch. Absolutely.
Cordelli.
Glenn is my committee chair.
Yeah, I've had Glenn on here twice. I've had Kate Demers, Kate Baker Demers on, and that was early on, and so they were on, and I had Fred Bramonti on.
Oh yeah, I know.
And that was really cool because he brought up some creative ways to do, and as you know, and everybody else knows, if you have two children in your family, they're not going to both learn the same way.
Right.
Most likely. So you have to adjust that, right?
Absolutely.
So that had to be the biggest thing, I think, with that. Was it? Or was it? What was the driving force behind it? Let's start there.
Well, because you're working off a public education model that's well over 100 years old. And at one point, it served the population, but time and society have changed the dynamics of what's going on in public education. So consequently, what happens is not every child is going to fit into the same mold. Now, that's not a disparaging comment on parents or schools or teachers or anything. It's just the way it is. So instead of us spinning our wheels and trying to figure out how to best serve that kid in a public school, the parents take charge and they find out what's going to work for that child and help that child to achieve the goals academically that they need to achieve to be successful. So, when parents are involved in their kids' education, that's the best of all worlds. And if they find that that something is not working at the public school level, then they should have the option to find the best educational pathway for their kid. And that's what we've done. And there's so many people that have been involved in that movement over the past several years. And I really want to thank the governor for signing that, because I know that was a bone of contention, and I know that, especially with people on the other side of the aisle, it's not an indictment of public schools.
Right.
What it is an opportunity for parents to find the best way for their kids to get the best education.
Yeah, and I don't know any parents who wouldn't want that.
Exactly.
I don't care what your political side is. It doesn't matter. I think you'd want to make sure your kid had a great education.
Exactly.
I mean, I was a public educated student, and actually taught at a Catholic school for 3 years. So, but I think that was really important. That's a big win.
It's a
for
huge
parents,
win
for the kids. I think for our state, that's an awesome move.
It actually makes us the only state in New England that offers that. Which
Great.
You know what? I want to be first. We're first in the nation,
right.
With the primary, and now we're first in the nation with education freedom. So I think that's monumental.
Absolutely.
And again, all the people that were behind it, the senators, and it really has been a collective effort, and it's
so
paid off.
So you're on that committee.
I am on the House Education Policy and Administration.
Yep. What else?
And also Environment and Agriculture.
Okay.
Which I know nothing about, but I'm learning fast.
So now you're a farm girl.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. Anybody who knows me knows that I was probably, like you, I was raised very far away from a farm. So, but I'm learning quickly about leachate fields and landfills and
water.
And
PFAS
water and PFAS don't really come to us too often.
Oh, okay.
That's I never get that. That's science and technology.
Right.
So.
The Star Wars Committee, right?
Yeah, that's the Star Wars Committee,
Okay,
right,
got
right.
it.
So I'm learning fast, and I've been fortunate to have two really great committee chairs. Judy Aaron heads up
Oh, wow.
Environment and
Yeah.
Agriculture, and she's just great. She's a
Yep.
wealth of knowledge and just a great person to go to.
Yeah.
And Glenn Cordelli, who is small but mighty.
Absolutely.
Small but mighty, that's for sure.
Exactly.
You know, learning quite a bit. So. And it's not my first. This is my second term non-concurrent. I was back.
Right.
I was in the House in 2017 when we lived in Manchester.
Right.
So
And then you moved.
And then we moved almost 3 years ago. 3 years in October.
Oh, wow.
We moved up to Tilton.
Yeah.
So I'm back in the House.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and as
And you're
long-
loving it.
I do. Yeah, I do. I really like
It's
it.
it's very interesting. I don't think people realize the feeling you have when you're in that house. When you're in Reps Hall and look around at the
Those
paintings
big
on the
paintings,
wall
yeah.
that these people actually served. You might be sitting in this one of the seats they had.
I love walking up the marble stairs because every
Oh,
time
yeah.
I do, you know, when you're coming from the cafeteria up to the first floor of the
Yep.
State House, I love walking up those stairs because I just imagine how many people in history have walked up those stairs. Like, whose
Yeah.
feet touch this? You know,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And they're kind of
they're
worn a
concave
little,
in the
right?
middle. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, from all the feet that have gone up and down them over the years. So.
And I think you're right. Our governor, she signed it. I'm really pleased with that.
Thrilled.
That there was no, she was very much in favor of it.
She was, and she even said from the get-go that, you get it through, get it on my desk, and I will
she'll
sign
sign
it.
it.
And she supports that. And I think that's telling that, we have a governor who does value public education. Her husband's a teacher.
Right.
But
Yep.
also understands that some children are not going to fit in that mold.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure whether her daughters went to public school or not. That I don't know.
I don't know
I
either.
know her oldest daughter is at the Air Force Academy.
Yes,
which
yes.
is pretty cool. I'm sure Joe was thrilled with that, being a fighter pilot. So that's pretty cool. What other things are going on that we should tell the
Well, the
audience about?
parental rights bill, I mean, that was another huge one that took, quite a
Took a
bit of
lot of
effort.
work.
It really did. I mean, the original bill was not what ended up on the governor's desk, but it's a start. I mean, parents do have certain rights.
Of course.
And this just kind of sets the parameters and sets the guidelines around what parents have a right to. Those are their children.
Yep.
And the government doesn't own them, the schools don't own them, no one owns those children, but the parents are the custodians, and they should have information in order to be able to make the best decisions for their children.
I find it sad that we're even talking about that.
I know.
I mean, it's just, I can't imagine growing up that my father would allow the teachers to get control of me. No way. And that wasn't even an ethnic thing. I just think, it's how your family is, how
Right.
strong your family is. I mean, I didn't see my dad until I was 4. He was in the Philippines during the war, World
Oh,
War
gosh,
II.
God bless him.
A tough place to be. It was terrible. New Guinea, worst possible place you could be. In fact, I really am not looking too hard for these pictures, but the first pictures I remember seeing of my dad, he had 2 cut off heads in his hands like this.
Cool.
Because the Philippines would,
Oh, they
cut
were
off the-
brutal. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a terrible, but I've never forgotten that. I just imagine what these men and women went through during that time.
Sure.
So what other bills, we've talked about let's see, Terry Roy's been on a couple of times. We talked about some of the gun bills that have come up and how they've gone. I'm not sure what bills they were, I don't recall right now, but I think it had to do with bail reform. So that was a pretty big...
That went through,
Yep.
and the governor did sign that. I'm not as versed on criminal justice as I am on education,
Sure.
but there was something that Terry Roy did that I actually thought was a really good idea. He attached an amendment to a bill that would adopt an NRA-approved program for the schools.
Right, what was it, once a year or something, they have a class? or-
Exactly, and it's completely opt-in.
Yeah.
It's not being forced on
Yeah,
kids.
it's right.
And I wish I could remember the name of the program.
Yeah,
I
he
can't
did
remember
talk
the name
about
of the
that.
yeah.
And I was pleased that he did that.
And I think that's a really good idea. It doesn't. What it does is it teaches children. Not about the gun, but
Right.
about gun safety.
Right, about safety.
About safety,
Yep.
and what you should never touch and what you should never do, and kind of exposes them a little bit. Not too much, because some people don't want their children to be exposed to guns at a very young age.
Right.
But at least gives them a parameters around what's safe behavior around them and what isn't. So I wish I could remember the name of that program.
What's interesting to me is there's so many hunters up here.
Right.
That would be a natural. I mean, that should help them as well, because you do have to go through safety courses.
Right.
There are several safety courses that are around that you should take.
You should take them. We don't.
It's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory,
right.
but I mean, anybody who wants to carry a firearm
Right.
or believes that they want to shoot a gun, make it a hobby, you should take a safety course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in your best interest to do that.
Yeah, and the Women's Coalition did it. I know.
Well, the Women's Defense League does it.
Right,
Who
right.
I'm a very proud member of.
Yeah,
And,
and that's Kim Morin. And
Kim Morin, yeah.
Victoria, right? Is she
I don't
still
know,
on that or not?
Well, she's a member. I don't
But
know if
she's
she's on the board anymore.
okay.
I don't think she is. But
Yeah.
that's an organization that's been going strong. So that program I thought was a really good idea.
Yeah.
Teach. If you make children fearful of something, and you don't help them to understand what it is, gun is a tool, just like a hammer,
Right.
and just like a chainsaw.
Right.
You don't teach a kid at a young age that you shouldn't touch that chainsaw.
Right.
You
teach
it could
them to
end
stay
badly.
out of the way.
Exactly, it could
Yeah.
end badly. Then you're not doing the job you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you want people to respect those things, they need to know why.
Right.
And children are inquisitive by nature. It's just
Oh,
the way
sure.
they are. So, I mean, my husband and I, started exposing our son to guns when he was 8 years old.
Yeah.
Not putting one in his hand,
Right.
but saying, you know what? This is this is that. Don't touch that. Don't touch that. No guns were left around the house. We did our part.
Right.
We did our part. And I think it's important that all children understand that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Especially in today's world. I mean, I think they need to know a lot about it. There's so much on social media
Right.
that is wrong.
Right.
And you don't want the kid to get stuck into that kind of
Right. I mean, and this
thinking.
allows you as a parent to correct any of those, wrong views that they may have of
Right.
firearms. So, I really did like that idea. House Education got the second largest number of bills in the House. It was
wow.
election law first, and then it was us. So
Wow.
my head's just,
So how many bills came through your committee? Do you remember?
I want to say, if I was to guesstimate, I want to say 200 to 250. So
Wow. That's incredible.
yeah.
And did you get any from the Senate too?
Well, when we do crossover.
crossover,
Yeah,
yeah.
when we do, well,
So-
the Senate doesn't file nearly as many bills as the House does.
No, absolutely.
So, yeah, no.
But I think we sent over like 600 or 700 bills. to
Right,
them
and they
when I
sent
was in
over
there.
like maybe 100,
Yeah. Yeah.
They're always, well, there's only 24 senators.
Right.
As opposed to 400 screaming state representatives that everybody wants, gotta get a bill in, gotta get a bill in. So,
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because that's what new representatives want to do.
Right.
Because when they were running, they probably one of their constituents said, "Can you get this bill in?
Can you
for
write
me?"
a law?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they feel they have to do it.
Right.
You end up with. I tried to put a bill in when the late Gary Hopper and I were in together, that we were going to put a bill in that says for each bill you put in, you had to
You have
take
to take
10
out-
off.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I don't think that's a bad
But we
idea.
never got it passed, and that's because there were too many new people,
Well,
I think.
maybe we should start small. Maybe instead of 10, do 2. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
incrementally increase it.
Yeah.
Every 2 years make it 2 more, and then 2 more, and then 2 more.
I mean, I bet you if you went back to all the RSNAs, you could start eliminating them.
yeah.
But no one's got the time to do that.
Right, 2 is good. 10 is
Yeah.
10 is a lot. 2 is good. I'd sponsor that bill.
Yeah,
I'd sponsor that
I
bill.
think next,
I'll
be
call it the
looking for it.
J.P. Mazzullo Act.
There you go. I love it.
Dedicated to J.P. Mazzullo.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah,
We could do that.
I do miss some of that, not everything. but I do miss being there. It's fun, really. I mean, people, you really think you can make a difference. And this is one of the few states in the country that you can actually do that.
Well, we're a citizen-led legislature.
Right. You can go in and I can remember some of my friends in Annapolis, when they heard I became a state rep, they said, well, that's great. What a great retirement it must be.
Yeah.
And when I told them it was $100, they couldn't believe it. I said, it's $100 a year. And, you know, some people think that's foolish, but I do think it's the right way, you know?
Well, I do too, because for all intents and purposes, it does keep us honest.
Yeah.
Some more than others. I mean, there's always lobbyists and things like that. Incidentally, I won't take a dime from a lobbyist.
Right, exactly.
That's not what I'm there for.
Exactly.
And honestly, if you need that kind of money, if you need that kind of money, then for $100 a year slot, then I don't know, maybe you should rethink your priorities.
Yeah, while you're doing it.
But it really is look, I grew up in Massachusetts, you grew up in Connecticut.
Right.
You know what crooked politicians look like.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know, this really does keep us as honest as possible.
Yeah.
I know every time a bill comes up that they want to increase our pay or give us more benefits, I'll always vote against it, because it's not my money, it's the taxpayers' money.
Right, exactly. I mean, I am glad that they at least give you a stipend to go to the State House. You know,
we get mileage.
Yeah, you get mileage,
we get
but it's not much. And I can remember.
Well, it depends on how far away you live from the State House, you know.
Yes.
So, I mean, what do I get for a day at the House?
How many miles do you go?
It's 21.
Okay, we were about the same mileage.
Yeah,
and
it's
you
21.
get nothing.
I think I get like, I don't know. I want to say, I don't even know anymore.
So you can either take the government's mileage or the state's mileage.
I take the government's mileage. I take the government's mileage, and I get what, $18, $19 every time I go up to the State House. So, you know, and sometimes I forget to even put in for my mileage.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, it does. It happens.
If you get so wrapped, and the other thing people don't realize is that if you have more than one town, you're going to be asked to do things in those towns, and the state doesn't pay you to go to those things. That comes out of your own pocket, and I think that's fair. But it can get, you know, if you have a large area, then it becomes, because the only time they pay you is when you go to the State House, right? Or do you get, I think that used to.
Yeah, or if you get assigned to a study committee, or if you're on a commission.
Right, or right, that's true, I never thought of that, right.
I mean, they will pay you mileage for that.
Yeah.
But look, if you're looking to get rich off of that.
Wrong thing to do.
Yeah, get a job, because that's not going to happen.
No, exactly.
It's not going to happen.
And the thing interesting to me now is the State House is getting younger. If you take the average years, when I was there, I think we said it was like 68 or 70 years old.
Yes.
But now it's gotten younger, no question about it.
Yeah, we definitely.
It's good, though.
Right, and that's on both sides of the aisle.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's on both sides. I mean, we really have some dynamos coming up in the Republican Party.
Oh, yeah.
We really do.
Joe Sweeney was in here.
Joe's great. We've
job.
got, the youngest one is James Tebow, who's up in Franklin.
How old is he?
He just turned 19.
Wow.
Dynamic kid. There's Valerie McDonald.
Oh, yeah.
Out of Salem. Fantastic legislator.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Now, the tough part about that, I think people are trying to figure out, is how does somebody that age, if they're going to college, how do they work it into their schedule?
They do.
That's what I was just going to say.
Do.
They want to do it so badly that they do.
They do.
I think the tough part is if you're just out in the workforce, right? You're just starting a job, and you run, it's a little harder to do. And that's why it was a lot of retired people in the beginning. If you weren't retired or had your own business, it was difficult. But when I was there were quite a few younger people who were in real estate.
Right,
so
which is a very flexible field. And I had my own business.
Right.
So when I was in 2017, I was still able to work, but I was able to construct my schedule around what was going on in the house.
So tell the people what your business was.
So I am a retired occupational therapist, and my business was assisting families with at-home care for their elderly parent, relative, whatever. And what they call that in the business is aging in place.
Right.
My specialty was Alzheimer's and dementia.
Wow.
So I would help families out with that. I retired from that 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I'm done. I'm
You're
done.
finished.
Yeah, I'm done. I put 35 years in the business.
Wow.
So,
Really?
yeah.
Now, where did you get your training?
So I got my first degree at North Shore Community College, and then I went down to the University of Florida and finished up.
Oh, wow.
So
That was cool.
many years ago.
Many years ago.
Many years ago.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, the occupations that people have had in the State House, if you sit and talk to them, it's quite interesting, actually.
Well, I'm going to say this, and I don't know if you know exactly what an occupational therapist does. Do you?
I have an idea of what it does, but I'm not sure it's correct.
Because it's deceiving. What it says is occupation.
Right.
It has nothing to do with people's jobs or
Right. No,
work.
I knew that.
Right.
Right.
It has everything to
Do with
do
health.
It does, and it is. Let's just use an example. Your bad knee.
Yeah.
Okay. You have a bad knee. You go in and get a knee replacement surgery.
Right.
Physical therapy will take care of the nuts and bolts and bones and muscles.
Right.
But in the meantime, you still have to go home and take care of yourself.
Right.
I'm the person who teaches you how to do that, given the limitations you have.
Got it.
So it's not just knees; it's traumatic brain injuries,
Right.
it's strokes, it's any chronic illness.
Yeah, they come into your house
Right.
and look at how many steps you have to walk in.
Physical.
Are
right.
the rooms big enough?
Right.
How do you? Yeah.
Can you dress yourself? You lose
Right.
an arm. How are you going to dress yourself?
Right. Yeah, that's interesting because they ask that as you get older. They ask that question every time.
Mm-hmm.
They give you this little piece of paper to fill out. You don't put your name on it. You just check off. And I think that's proactive. I think that's not a bad idea.
Well, I mean, it's been around for over 100 years. It started in World War I.
Wow.
They were called reconstructive aids, and what they do, and people make fun of us, is they would do arts and crafts with the soldiers, the amputee soldiers. It was less about the arts and crafts and what we call purposeful activity.
Right.
At least occupying their mind and their time. So they could find where they needed to be, or at least work around any physical deficit they may have.
Now, how did you pick that field?
So it's a long story.
Well, we have time.
Do we have time? It's kind of
we can either talk
boring.
about that or cooking, one of the three things.
I don't
or
cook very
or
much.
eating.
Eating is mangiano.
Mangiano's fine.
Mangiano's good.
But so, yeah, just...
How did I find it? I was in nursing school in Boston at the Kearney Hospital. It was
Kearney, sure.
The St. Catherine Labouré. I was in nursing school, and I was actually 6 months away from graduation, and I got assaulted by a patient.
Oh my God.
And I got thrown up against a wall and messed up my back really bad. 2 bulging discs, right and left sciatica, really bad. So 6 months away from graduation. So unfortunately, the school would not take responsibility. I wanted to finish up my clinicals. I was going into an OBGYN rotation. The school would not allow me to do my clinical rotations because they couldn't be liable.
Okay.
So at that point, and I really was in bad shape back-wise, just not good.
Wow. Yeah.
At that point, I started going to rehab, getting myself back together.
Sure.
And then I had to find something to do. So I went and had a vocational assessment.
Oh, nice.
And the vocational assessment told me about occupational therapy. And upon further exploration, I didn't realize that I was more geared to be that than I was a nurse.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because I really, I don't want to take care of people. I want to teach you how to take care of yourself.
Right.
That to me is, the biggest reward as an OT that you can get is, you know what, you took this person who couldn't do X, Y, and Z.
Yep, now they can.
And now they can.
And they feel better about themselves,
absolutely,
too, when you do it that way.
Absolutely. It's a multifaceted thing. It's not just about the physical condition. It's also about the mental condition, the emotional part of it, and we want people to be engaged. So I really took to it. Really loved it.
And where did you work?
Oh gosh.
Locally, or you were in Florida then? Right?
No, I moved back from Florida, back up to Boston. My first job was on a locked psychiatric unit.
Oh God.
Which I loved that job.
You like that?
I loved that job.
Oh my Lord.
Loved that job, and that's where I met Neil. And no, he wasn't a patient. He was a mental health counselor.
No, I would never say that.
That's it. That's where I met him.
So that's where you met him?
Yep, that's where I met him.
That's pretty interesting.
That was a great job. I loved that job. I mean, honestly, JP, give me a good schizophrenic any day. I can do.
That's why you like the State House, right?
Exactly. No, those people are under the facade that they're normal. You're not normal.
Yeah.
You're not normal.
I know some of those people.
I do too.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that job, but unfortunately, when I was working through that job about a year into it, all of the state hospitals
closed, right?
Right, closed them all down. And I remember saying when they started doing that, I said, "Where are they going?"
Yeah, where are they going to go?
And they said, "Well, we've got community resources and group homes." And I said, "Some people are never meant to be outside without that type of structure. Not their fault.
Right.
But we as a society have an obligation to take care of them.
Agreed.
And at least know that they have a roof over their head, that they're safe, that they're fed."
Yes.
And I just knew when they really started doing that those people are going to be on the street.
Yeah, and they still are.
And here we are, 30 years later.
Yeah, so the state bought a hospital, right? Wasn't it going to be a psychiatric hospital or for mentally ill patients? Didn't the state just buy
No, I
hospital?
think you're talking about Hampshire. No, not Hampshire House. Oh, I know which one you're talking about too.
Yeah, it was.
I don't think they bought it. What they did is they provided funding to make more beds.
Oh, okay.
They didn't buy it.
All right.
They didn't buy it. We have a state hospital. We have a state mental health facility. It's not nearly as big as it should be.
Is that in Concord?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I know where that is.
Yeah, it's in Concord.
But they used to have many more in the state.
Well, there used to be state-run institutions all over the country, but unfortunately, the ACLU shut them all down. Now, look, there was problems in those facilities.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but they threw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Instead of fixing the problems that existed in those state-run facilities, they just closed them. And I mean,
is there any movement in the State House to, get more facilities like that?
Every year there is. Every year there is. But it really does boil down to money. It really does boil. That is financially, that's a heavy lift. But one of the things that I always say was, well, either we spend it here or we spend it on increased Medicaid.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's kind of a trade-off.
Yeah.
But I'm no financial guru, that's for sure. And so, because my limited knowledge of finances and how that would work.
Yeah. No.
But I mean, you see it. Manchester, you see it. There are so many people that are walking around that have a chronic mental illness that, by no fault of their own, they may never be able to be out in society. But we really do, as people, as humans, we really do need to take care of them.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember them moving the homeless from one street. They came in, the former mayor came into Manchester with backhoes and front loaders and knocked down all of these homeless camps that were under the highway and stuff like that.
Right, when they put up Camp COVID.
Yes.
I remember when they did that.
Yeah,
yes.
and I was really upset because having done so much at Liberty House with homeless veterans, we gave a lot of those homeless people tents and sleeping bags, and the city literally took them and threw them in the trash.
Yep.
And to me, there was no plan. The plan was, let's get them out of the way, let's hide them so nobody sees them.
Right.
But if I look at the other side, if it's easy to come to Manchester to be taken care of, then people from other areas will. They'll drive them in here.
And it's that,
but that's
that whole philosophy of if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
And a lot of us push. I was still living in Manchester at the time. A lot of us pushed back on that.
I know that
because we said if you build it, they will come, and they did, and they did.
I mean, Joe Kelly Lavassie was one of the people
who was screaming the loudest about it.
And it had to do with his business too.
Yes.
I mean, it's hard to have a business in Manchester because they always close down the roads. It's either for a parade, for a race, for a car race, for whatever, and they close off, and those people, they lose business.
I don't get runners. Do you get runners?
I used to
You know what? If you see me running, Run with me, because I'm running from something.
And I'll be slower and it'll catch me.
It doesn't matter if I have to pick you up and take you with me. Something big is running my way.
I used to run anywhere from 60 to 80 miles a week.
And that's why your knees are gone.
Yes, that and football. You know, both of those things were things that would tear my body apart. And if I had known that I would end up like this after playing football, I would have played golf.
No, you wouldn't have. You would have still
I would have
played football.
tried.
No, when you're young, you don't listen to
Well, no, you
anybody.
don't. That's true. And the funny thing is, I've always told people, I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for a while, and you could go to a baseball game and there'd be nobody there. There'd be hardly anybody there.
That's
you go to
sacrilege.
you go to a football game and people were standing up in the aisles, right?
Pittsburgh Pirates, what's wrong with people?
Well, but that was a long time ago. The Pittsburgh Pirates were good. Now they're starting to come along. You have Skeens, and we had season. Donna's a baseball fanatic. We had season tickets, like third baseline, like 8 rows back when we moved there. But I would tell people they could get a lot of people at the games if they would allow them to take their bat with them when they run, and they get one swing and nobody knew who they were going to swing at, they would pack the place. That's a mentality.
Can we do that at the State House? I think they call that assault and battery.
Probably.
With a deadly weapon.
Exactly.
I'll need Joe Kelly. Joe, help me. Joe.
Yeah, I know. I mean, but
I didn't mean to hit her.
But anyway, let's talk about some of the other things. I mean, you mentioned the money part of it. The budget is coming up. I think the vote's tomorrow, correct?
Yes.
And that's there's still a lot of room to discuss it, I guess.
No.
No, it's the final vote.
Well, for all intents and purposes, right? It's gone through the committee of conferences.
Did it go to?
No, it didn't need to go through Jelcar.
Okay.
It's gone through the committee of conferences.
Right.
What has come out of the Senate? Well, first off, the Senate has to vote on it.
Right.
The final version of this.
Okay.
And we'll see what the Senate does.
That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. We wait for the Senate to vote on it.
Right.
And then the Senate will either bring it over to us or they won't bring it over to us.
Exactly. Yep.
If we find ourselves in a quagmire, the governor has called for a special session on Friday.
Okay.
Now, we could do a couple of things. We can either kill it outright and go to a default budget, or we do a continuing resolution,
yep.
Which I hope we do, because that means at least we'll fund the state.
Yes.
We've got a holiday week coming up.
Yep,
We've got July 4th, and
yep.
that's like one of our big tourist weeks, and
yeah.
liquor and restaurants. So we'll just have to see how it unfolds.
Budgets are always tough. Very seldom do they just.
This one seems to be a little
harder.
Not harder. It just seems to be a little more controversial. That's all. I've been in budget cycles before. You've been in budget cycles before.
Yeah, this is. Yeah,
the first vote, it never goes through without a hitch. It's just the way it is. You've got 400 people sitting in that house.
Right.
You're not going to get them. You're not going to get 200 and 200 to agree to anything. It's just not
Correct.
the way it is.
Yep.
And Republicans have more seats, but it doesn't matter. You're not going to get 224 Republicans to agree to one thing.
No.
The Democrats, on the other hand, they usually are lockstep with each other.
Yeah, they are.
That's their gig. That's their prerogative.
Yep.
So I've never seen a budget go through the first.
No, I don't think ours did either. Looking back now, it didn't. But there weren't a lot of changes. There were just a little tweaking of some verbiage and things like that.
Right, yeah.
And that's
this is a little more than that.
Yeah.
This is a little more than that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we just have to see how it unfolds.
So the governor said that she would veto it if something was taken out of it. And I don't recall what that was.
Well, she'll veto. What happened at the committee of conference is the House and the Senate agreed to, instead of the $340 million for the Group 2 and 3 retirees,
yep.
it would be like 150
right.
or 170 million. And the governor was very clear, she'll veto it.
Yeah.
She'll veto it.
That's the retirement funds for police and firefighters, right?
Group 2 and 3.
Group 2 and 3. And I know that Representative Bordas is really, he's going to vote no. And, people don't know, maybe don't know his history a little, but he's from New York City, mm-hmm. and during 9/11, he lost a relative, mm-hmm. Who was a firefighter. And his whole family had a bunch of firefighters. That's kind of what happens, right? The family all became either policemen or firefighters.
Right, public service, absolutely.
Right, and so he's passionate about that.
And that's fine. That's fine. I come from a family of public servants. I've 2 uncles who were cops. No firefighters in my family, but I mean, even though
in Boston.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not unsympathetic. And that whole thing started in 2011 when they had to fix the pension program because it was
broken.
It was insolvent. I mean, nobody would be getting anything at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't have any strong feelings about it either way. But, if anybody knows me, they know I am a fiscal conservative.
Yeah.
And if we were flush with cash,
that'd be different.
It would be much easier for people to digest this. But because this is a very tight budget year. Remember, we're coming off of 4 years of CARES Act and ARPA money. Okay? Yep. Everybody had fat coffers. Yep. Everybody was spending money. And I want to...
And you had to spend it. The federal government was sending it to you.
That's right. And I want to know is, those 4 years, why didn't anybody try to fix the retirement system then?
Good question.
The money was there.
Yeah.
The money was there. At least it could have jump-started what we needed to do in order to make them whole.
Yeah.
But this is a very tight budget year. And in order to fund this, from what I've seen and understand, some fees have gone up to raise revenues. We've put in a new layer of online betting. And that's great, but those aren't always revenues that we can depend on. So, like I said, I don't have any strong feelings either way about it. It's not a hill for me to die on.
Right.
If this budget tomorrow doesn't go through, and the governor says she's going to veto it, and they bring it back with the $340 million, it's a good chance I'm going to vote for it. Because, honestly, we need to keep the state moving forward.
Of course. Yeah.
So, and, it's just like when you have a credit card with an unlimited credit limit on it, like an American Express,
Yeah.
You may not worry about how much you're spending until the bill comes in. And,
right.
I'm not that person. But if that's the powers that be, that's the powers that be.
Yeah, I think it's a tough year for that.
It's tough.
It really is.
It's
you
tough.
have a governor who was our AG, and she certainly understands that side of it as well.
Right.
So I know she wants to do what's right for New Hampshire and for the people in New Hampshire, and I believe you do, and everybody does. I don't know anyone in those seats that doesn't want to do what's right for New Hampshire.
Well, you do have the lobbyists and the special interest groups, and
right.
You know what? That's fine. Again, if that's who you want to be with, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm not going to, I'm certainly not going to make disparaging remarks about those groups. They're legal. Yeah. They can do what they want.
Sure.
Me,
you're all set.
I'm all set. Yeah, I don't have any skin in this game at this point.
Right.
I just want to do, as a fiscal conservative, what makes the most sense fiscally. And again, not dying on that hill.
In this, strange political atmosphere we're in now, in the country even,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be on a roundtable tomorrow morning with Jeff Chittister on his radio station, and we're going to discuss how hard it is to be a servant of the people in today's environment.
Well, I'll tell you, it is difficult, and it hasn't really been that great at the State House. It really hasn't. Nobody's been outwardly hostile.
Right.
But, there are times that we have to listen to lectures, and I don't want to be, look, my dad lives in Florida, my mom lives in Boston. I don't need to be lectured, okay, on morality or, I don't need it. So there are times where it's been a little contentious.
Yeah.
However, Monday at the golf tournament, I had never spoken to some of those representatives that were on the other side of the aisle.
Absolutely.
Until Monday.
Yep. Wasn't that fun?
It was awesome. We had a great time.
Yeah, and you got to know them as people.
Right?
And
I have to tell you, Representative Jim Maggiore.
Oh, yeah.
From
Jim
Hampton.
He's great.
What a great guy. I made him promise that when he sees me in the House, he'll say hi to me. I made a promise.
They should be able to do that. I mean,
they should do it anyways. I mean, for crying out loud, you know what? I don't care. It really doesn't matter to me what you think. We're people.
Yeah.
We're all stuck in this hall.
Yes.
Can we make it a little pleasant anyways? At least exchange hellos.
I have found that. We used to have a softball game.
Yeah.
Alexa, remember? But you know, they were older. They didn't know how to play softball on the other side. We had more, and even, you know what? We had Al Baldessaro,
oh, I know, Al was good,
who wanted to play all the positions.
Of course,
you know,
that's Al. He's the boss.
But we found out that, and I wasn't part of this, but they found out that it was better to have a golf tournament.
Sure.
Because it's a scramble, so it doesn't matter how good you are. If you're a good putter or you're a good driver, you can fit into that group.
Well, it's teamwork makes the dream work. You know,
exactly.
It's teams.
That's
it's
true.
A foursome. It's not just one person getting up to bat.
Yep.
And feeling humiliated because they struck out.
Or they can't run the first base.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think golf is an excellent.
But you're right, though. You know, we sat at tables for lunch, and you were sitting with, I had to leave early, but I sat with some people.
Yeah, you didn't even say goodbye.
I couldn't say, where were you? Were we on the same table?
No, well, I think so, because I said to you when the food came out, I said, JP, I have a seat right over here.
Yeah, I didn't eat.
I turned around, you were gone. Don't do that again.
It was it was the heat issue for me.
Well, I know, my gosh, it was oppressive.
It was really difficult. I thought I'd be the oldest person at the golf tournament, but Arlo Bergeron showed up, and he's got about 4 years on me. So that's Juliana's husband.
Oh my gosh.
So when he showed up, I said, oh, good, I'm not the oldest. That was the funny, Cliff Hurst was a good friend. I still love Cliff Hurst. And I would tease him. I said, I always wanted to make sure you were at the same event so I wouldn't be the oldest. Now he's not here anymore. And
JP, you talk like you're 1,000 years old for crying out loud.
Well, no, I'm in my 80s.
Well, God bless you. God bless you. You know what?
No,
you're one of the younger 80-ish people I know.
I'm fortunate I have good genes. I mean, I had uncles who were in their 90s and they were still driving. You know, thank God they weren't driving up here, but they were still driving.
They weren't driving well.
No,
they were just still
they were driving. But yeah, and I'm the youngest of I'm the oldest living male in my family right now. That won't change, obviously. Well, it could, but not something I'm looking forward to. But I have, I have relatives who we all went to. It was funny because we went to Greenwich High School. A part of us did, and the rest of them went to St. Mary's, which was a Catholic high school.
Of course.
So I went to Greenwich High School, and my cousin, who lived in the same house with me, because it was a two-family house, right? She was a senior when I was a freshman. So our moms decided to try to find some matching clothing. Now, of course,
for the love of God. I don't even want to hear this story.
No. I didn't wear a skirt or dress or anything.
No, I'm not saying that. Oh my gosh,
so
no.
I was so embarrassed because, and she was probably more embarrassed than I was. I had a plaid shirt that matched her plaid dress.
Just tell me one thing. You didn't take her to her prom, did you?
Oh, no.
Oh, all right. I was going to say, oh my gosh.
No. I actually... Yeah, I did okay in school, so let's just leave it there. But, they're still alive, but I'm still, the young kid.
Yeah, you're the baby.
I'm the baby, which is kind of cool. And I think if you hang around young people, you can stay young.
Oh, I agree.
I do a lot, I've talked to this before, I do a fair amount at New England College with the kids up there. And, it's great. I mean, I've done a podcast with a young girl who was on the fields hockey team. They now have a TV studio, so I was invited to go there and sort of help them with some things. So it's been great. And this year will be their first season, football season, that they're going to have home games. Because this is the first time they've had a football team in 50 years.
Wow.
So people will know the person who's going to be the main person in the booth will be Ken Kale. And I'm going to be the color guy for Ken. So I'm looking forward to that. Again, it keeps you involved. Like you were saying, occupational therapist.
Right.
Keep your mind
Purposeful
involved.
activity.
Yeah, because there are times when, I sit back and say, I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't want to go, But once I'm there, I'm glad I'm there.
Why didn't I want to be here?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's why I'm happy to be back in the State House.
Probably.
Good, bad, or indifferent, that energy keeps you going.
Oh, yeah.
That energy keeps you, and you're going through bills. I don't have a background in law.
No,
I don't have a background in law, right? You know, so you go through the bills and you research, and you know, geez, this word I'm not really sure. This is illegal, you know, legalese.
And other people will help you. I mean,
I don't want any help. I'm independent. It's a sign of weakness. Asking for help. No, I don't ask for help.
No, we try not to say that because veterans need to ask for help.
Veterans, but I'm not a veteran.
You're a veteran in some ways.
No, how much?
You're a veteran.
I was married to a veteran.
Right.
How much money did we raise at the tournament? I think it was over $20,000.
Oh yeah, it'll be over 20. Last year it was 23,000.
Yeah.
They expect it more this year. I haven't talked to Mike about it. They've totally, the final count, because people will, you know, still send some money in or to the tournament that weren't there maybe, and they'll, you know, anytime you can. That's a lot of money to raise. That's great. This Friday, Liberty House has their own golf tournament at Stonebridge Country Club in Goffstown.
Right.
So that's Friday, and I know.
Good.
I know some of the state reps. James, can't think of his last name all of a sudden. I went blank. But they've got a foursome going, even though they played. Spillane. Thank you.
You're welcome.
James Spillane bought a foursome again. This is the third time he did it, and thank you for doing that. And it'll be good. I have no intention of going there. I have other things I need to do. And
go for the lunch.
But it's great. You know, it's great the way we support. And that's the other thing. There are a lot of Democrats that go to those tournaments too, but you never know whether they are or not. You don't ask. That's not why you're there. You're there for somebody else.
JP, anything that if you want to learn about how true bipartisanship works, look at the military.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what religion you are, what color you are, what background you're from, your socioeconomic status, your political affiliation.
Yep.
They work as a unit for a reason.
It's a mission. They're on the same mission.
Yeah, and you know what? That guy standing next to you is going to watch your back, so you better watch his back.
Have his six. Right.
And that's. It doesn't matter. You know, if a veteran needs help, the help should be there for them.
Oh, yeah.
It's pivotal. I mean, we have such a huge debt of gratitude to those veterans.
Yeah, and there's a lot of several groups in the state that are working on that, and they all do a great job, and it's all for the same thing.
And I have to tell you, you know, and you'll use the VA.
Yes.
When you go, I don't think they were stellar. They were spectacular. Yep. They couldn't do enough. They couldn't do enough for him.
Yeah,
not me. They couldn't do enough.
Exactly, and that's awesome. I know somebody. I think Pappas wants to. We're the only state without a full.
They're not going to put a full-service VA hospital here.
They're not going to do it. And I have fought with people about this in the past. I spent 40 plus years in the medical imaging business, and occasionally that question would come up, and I would say, you don't need it here. You have Boston and you have Dartmouth. You happen to be in the middle. How do you draw good doctors to a small community? Because it's like a community hospital, really. And how do you get those people to come?
And we have Veterans Choice.
Right.
And some veterans are very happy with that. I
Absolutely.
know, Neil.
That works great for some.
Neil got all of his chemo treatments in Manchester.
Yep.
And his oncologist was in Manchester.
Yep.
And if we needed CAT scans or any other testing, we went down to West Roxbury.
Sure.
First off,
West Roxbury VA is awesome.
It's great.
Yeah.
You know, it's an 80-mile drive.
Right.
But they paid us to drive down there.
Exactly.
You know?
Yes.
And they got us right in, and they got us right out.
You had great service. The doctors are great. They're young. They know what's going on. They have all the newest technology.
Why would you want to put a monkey wrench in that? I mean, we had a full-service VA hospital in New Hampshire.
Yep.
Years ago. They closed it down. We've managed to get around that. We've managed to adapt to that.
This runs like a very good clinic.
Yeah.
And
it does. Their urgent care is excellent.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
And to suggest that we should have a full service, I know some of the people will be angry with me, but I really believe that. I don't think it makes sense to do it.
Well, and I think it's just going to add another layer of bureaucracy, which is something that the current administration is trying to cut back on, is bureaucracy. You know, those dollars are better spent in direct care.
Yes.
And not on bureaucrats or people sitting behind a desk or a secretary that needs to be a secretary for the doctor. You know, I'd love to see a full service VA hospital. I would have loved to have seen that when Neil was sick.
Sure.
It didn't happen. So you learn to adapt. And you know what? Veterans are tough.
Of course they are.
If you tell them they have to go to West Roxbury or White River Junction, guess what? They're getting on that shuttle and they're going.
Yeah.
Or they're driving out there.
Yep.
So.
And there's two sides to that story.
Yeah, there is.
Obviously.
There is.
And I agree. If they could have kept the old, why did they stop the first time? So I mean, I don't really know, but
and again,
they decided
we
not
roll
to.
back to veterans' choice. Any veteran with authorization can walk into any hospital in New Hampshire and get what they need if the urgent care doesn't offer it.
Yep.
So, and thank you, Al Baldessaro.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know, he spearheaded that.
Yeah, he did.
So, and thank you, President Trump. So, I just don't see. Look. People do things when they're running for office. They make promises, you know, they're looking at the right shiny object. But I just couldn't justify it in my mind right now, you know, spending that kind of money. When we've managed to work with the system that we have. And I know there's going to be people who disagree with me, and that's fine. You can disagree with me, but
yeah, that is fine.
I'd rather see those dollars go right to veterans.
I agree. So we got off track a little bit, but that's great. We're sort of running out of time. We have, doesn't it go quick?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, don't put two Italians in the same room.
That's true. Well, if we had wine, we'd be here the rest of the night.
Oh my gosh, we wouldn't leave.
I mean, that's true. We could do the whole show.
A bocca di vino, a little pasta. We'd be all set. We'd sit here for hours.
Yeah, I should have if I can talk Josh into it, I'd like to have a whole Italian month. Just have
October. That's Italian Heritage Month.
Right, exactly. That would be perfect. I'm going to work on that. That'd be fun.
I'll help you.
Oh, that's a deal. I can see we'd have Tim Merlino on, and let's see, there's a whole bunch of Italians that I'd have what's it, Maggioria?
Jim Maggioria.
Yeah,
he'd love that.
I'd have him on.
Oh, yeah. He's from Long Island.
Long Island?
Long Island.
Well, that's great. So
we could do that.
That would be fun. Let's, Josh, that's what you get for going away and leaving us together.
You missed out. Sorry, buddy. You missed out.
We're going to plan something when he's not here. It's like voting somebody into office when they're not at the meeting. Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And they come to the meeting and now they're in charge.
But Josh can't come that night, because if we have 4 or 5 Italians sitting around this table, nobody's getting a word in edgewise.
This is true. He probably could use a referee. He could be with a whistle. Oh no, cards like in soccer, right? Put a card up, a red card.
Red for stop, green for go. We could do that.
This has really been fun. I'm glad you came.
Yes, it has been. Thank you.
I'm glad you came on, and hopefully our audience had as much fun as we did. We're through for tonight, and have a happy Independence Day. We will air this show again because
2 weeks. We get it for 2 weeks.
Exactly.
I know.
That's awesome. So thanks a lot.
Happy birthday, United States.
And have a great time. Take care.